It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
.06 the time. It's a Wednesday. Over the hump we go.
Today's show is sponsored by Fish Lip Chapstick. Don't flounder when it comes to those lip scales.
And remember, ladies, if that guy's been hitting on you, that's a way to make sure he doesn't go for it.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. It's been a really busy week, and it's only Wednesday. I was saying that on Monday, that, wow, there's a really busy week. We've got a couple more political candidates on the program today, so we'll deal with that in the 8, 9 o'clock hour. Other than that, lots of topics to go through, including, let's start here in the state of Wyoming, the issue of testing the voter machines. When we started in Laramie County, wasn't just Laramie County, but we'll start in Laramie County where the news really broke. And a lot of that breaking news came out on this program as former gubernatorial candidate Brent Bien called in to tell us about this. So this is voting machines. You know how you do this. You fill out your ballot and you feed it into the machine. And then at the end of the day, it just counts all of that information based on what dots you filled out, right? So there's supposed to be a way to test the machines to make sure they're operating correctly. And the numbers that came out didn't make sense. Okay, so then in looking at this, and after talking with the Secretary of State and some other people on the air, it looks like it was not the machine's fault, but the way they ran the tests that was flawed. In which case, the Secretary of State, Chuck Gray, came on his program and said they need to rerun these tests. And also sent letters out to county clerks saying the same thing, rerun the test. Brent Bien and some other people were saying we might have to go to a hand count, in which case some counties said we're not prepared to do that. And I'm thinking, they should be. Meantime, the clerk that's in charge of all of this in Laramie County is saying that these Republicans are trying to disrupt the whole process, which I don't see how she comes across that, but okay. So they retested the machines, and it looks like everything's fine. That, as asked by the Secretary of State, clerks, now in this particular case, and I was reading the story with pictures from Cowboy State Daily, they went down to the cellar there in Laramie County of the building where the machines are kept, just like they did before, and this time they ran the tests as they're supposed to run it. Because, like I said, first time it was human error. It was what it looked like. And when they reran the test, everything was just absolutely fine. If that's the case, we're probably done here. Although, it's never really over until everybody's done talking about it. I'm sure we'll hear more about it before we get up to the 20th, because in case you didn't know, if you haven't voted yet, 20th is primary time. That's when you officially vote. I did yesterday early, and that's just because City Hall is right up the road here, and I just walked up and walked in the door and said I'd like to vote, and they handed me my ballot, and I just, connected the dots, if you will, and put it in the machine, and we're done. I'd like to do that because there's really nobody there. There were a couple of other people that were voting around me, but I had absolutely no waiting when I walked in to do that, which is why I like to do it so early. So you can early vote now. You've got up to the 20th. Remember my Stay Out the Vote campaign. If you have no idea who's running and what's going on, then do everybody a favor and don't vote. because we don't need low information, uninformed people showing up and guessing. Just please don't. We don't need you guessing. We need informed people. You don't have to agree with us. Just know what's on the ballot, who, and what you're voting for. All right, now, something I came across, it was sent to me yesterday. So Elon Musk interviewed former President Trump in a 2-hour on X, which used to be Twitter, interview. Now, there's a lot to be said about that, but here's the first part that kind of got me, what was sent to me yesterday. And so Elon Musk was in Wyoming when he interviewed Trump. Trump, I believe, was in New York. Yeah, I don't think Elon owns a house in Jackson, but he has a friend who does. And he was hanging out at his friend's house when it was time for that interview. So it was a 2-hour interview. Very interesting. I'm a guy who's been in radio since 1983. And I'm used to radio studios and all of the equipment and everything that we have around me. It's changed a lot over the years, but I'm used to sit like I am now. I'm sitting in the studio with a board in front of me. There's multiple screens around me. There's all sorts of other equipment and a nice professional microphone. These guys did this interview over their cell phones. I knew they could do that. That's where technology has gone. There's a lot of people who do podcasts, and they just do it over their cell phones because that's all they really need. Now, doing it over their phones means they cannot do a lot of the stuff that I can do in the studio, having this board and other equipment. I have a lot more options available to me. But Musk and Trump had that 2-hour conversation just by sitting there with their cell phones talking to each other for 2 whole hours. Musk in Wyoming, over in Jackson, Trump in New York. What really is irritating what you would call the legacy media is what the numbers are for this. I mean, big time numbers. I mean, the number of people that listen, first off, live, far exceeded any ratings that any of the television networks have. In fact, I would even say combined, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox combined couldn't reach those numbers. There are a lot of people that are YouTubers and podcasters. Their numbers far exceed anything that any of the television networks are doing, and they wouldn't want a job with those television networks because their numbers are bigger and they're making more money. Now, if you're thinking, then get into that for a living. It's very difficult to reach that level. There's very few people at that level. Okay, so the idea that you can just get into it and do it, it's not for everybody. Now, of course, Elon Musk already comes with a name. Donald Trump already comes with a name. So those two names getting together, and they're both billionaires. So those two names getting together is going to bring a huge audience. What I did find, and I'll get into this next, what I thought was hysterical was over in the European Union, they were warning Elon Musk about airing the interview or allowing it to air on X, formerly Twitter. I'm still getting used to that. It's going to take a while. Don't air that in the UK because we have rules against certain kinds of speech. Okay, well, they backed off on that finally, and I'll get into that next. But to me, it was interesting looking at the numbers of people, which was, I'll even call it obscene, how many people listened and are continuing to go back to listen to that interview. And it was just Musk and Trump talking to each other over the phone, and everybody was allowed to listen. And the usual press media that doesn't do their job correctly anyway was not allowed to be involved in it. It was actually what free speech should be. It was just put out there for us to consume, and we get to make up our own minds about it. Those people who are haters are going to hate. Those people who are fans, fine. Those people who are undecided get a chance to listen and make up their mind about it. See, that's what this whole freedom of speech idea with modern technology is supposed to be, not something that's heavily regulated like they want to do in the European Union and some here in America want to do. I'll explain more about that coming up next.
You're listening to the radio.
If it's happening in Wyoming, it's on Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods from K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
6:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, so just to finish off something I was talking about earlier, if you missed it, when Elon Musk was interviewing Donald Trump, Elon Musk was actually in Jackson, Wyoming. As far as I know, he doesn't have a house here. He's at a friend's house. And Donald Trump is in New York. I didn't know Musk was in Wyoming when he was interviewing Trump. And if they had timed it better, they could have done it in person because Trump had been in Wyoming just a few days earlier raising money from conservative billionaires that live in Jackson. But okay, over in the European Union, story in front of me says, facing accusations of election interference. The European Union on Tuesday tried to walk back censorship threats made by, they talk about who's the speech arbiter is the guy's name for the European Union. The European Union has a speech arbiter over Elon Musk interview with President Trump. The gentleman who's in charge here, his name is Brenton, appeared to have been thrown under the bus as panic broke out after he allegedly acted, saying he would punish X or Twitter owner Elon Musk ahead of the uncensored live conversation with Donald Trump. In his letter, the French businessman, of course he's French, the French business executive turned politician threatened to use all of his powers in his toolbox under the EU's Service Act if the interview broke in any of the EU's speech restrictions on hate speech, disinformation, or anything deemed to be harmful to civil discourse. Well, and in his opinion, I mean, of course these two are going to talk about controversial subjects, but in this guy's opinion, if he deemed anything to be harmful or disinformation, well, I guarantee you, those in the European Union, who, especially those in charge in the European Union, you want to talk about purveyors of disinformation, I would say it would be them. Now, what I'm about to play for you, this woman is just great. She's in the UK. She's speaking in front of Parliament. This is an old lady who sounds very British old lady. But to me, she has the perfect answer for this.
Nobody has the right to live their lives.
Hang on before I play the rest of it. Nobody has the right to live their life. Oh, my God, she's great.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. It is an occupational hazard of living in society. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
No, there you go. If you really can't take it, become a hermit. But here again, this EU guy threatening Elon Musk. Well, if anything runs on Twitter that might be harmful to the public, in his opinion, that might be misinformation or disinformation, in his opinion, by God, I'll use all my powers. Well, now he has to walk it back because, again, people consider that to be election interference. Now, in the meantime, that interview between Musk and Trump, again, the ratings so outrageously high. If they had done the same thing on any of the what you would call legacy media networks, the ratings wouldn't be anywhere near as high. I mean, nowhere near that. Especially if you have a reporter asking either of these two or both of them at the same time questions. It's just not going to be the same. But that shows, I think, the faith or lack thereof in our legacy media these days, which I don't turn to for any information anymore. I do keep up the Fox News Raw on television channel, which I told you that most of the time, all they're doing is they have cameras somewhere, and I can just watch what's going on. There's no commentators, there's no reporters, they just play it live, play it raw, which is, I think, what most of news should be. But the faith that we have now in our news reporters. It's been waning for many decades, and I've never seen it this low. And as far as I'm concerned, it is absolutely deserved. And it's not just the television networks on cable television, as you know, but also when you go online to try to find some decent news somewhere, it's all the same thing. They would love to have had the ratings, in fact, that they saw with this one. But again, there's people on YouTube and doing podcasts that have higher ratings than any of the networks do, which drives the networks absolutely crazy, and they would love these people to be censored. But they're independent, totally independent, doing what they want to do. And some of them, a very few, are so good at it, and their ratings are so high that they're making quite a bit of money at it. They just have to watch, though, because there's still that element. Who controls, really, the platforms that they're on? If you want to watch a podcast, who owns the platform that runs the podcast? Those people can, they want to censor, they still will. Glenn Beck has problems with that all the time. He talks about it on the air constantly. All right, coming up on some local news that we have to take care of. We're going to roll out of local news into your weather forecast. Then you and I get back into it. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. 645, extended weather forecast, which actually looks really nice for the next few days. Wake up, Wyoming.
He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So just a completely different story. Hey, Jim and Casper, you still out there? You might like this one. This is another Cowboy State Daily story, but I didn't know this had happened. A plane diverted from Jackson Hole Airport because the pilot was not qualified. Okay. Well, at least the pilot's doing the right thing. It's just the passengers were annoyed, but the passengers eventually got to where they were going. Here's what it says. Passengers on board an Alaska airline flight bound for Jackson Hole, Wyoming, were miffed. They used the word miffed last week when the pilot explained over the intercom that he could not land the plane at their destination. Instead, the flight was diverted to Salt Lake City. According to several eyewitnesses, the Alaskan Airlines SkyWest flight number 3491 made its approach into Jackson on Thursday. The pilot reported from the cockpit that he was unable to land. He said, quote, "Hey, I'm really sorry, folks, but due to me not having the proper qualifications to land in Jackson Hole, we need to divert to Salt Lake City. We'll keep you posted on the next steps." So data from FlightAware shows SkyWest took off from San Francisco on the scheduled 8 minutes early. They were on course. The aircraft then made the standard approach to Jackson Hole, entering the airspace from the southwest, swinging around the north from the preferred landing orientation. But the airplane never received speed or altitude requirements and immediately went into a holding pattern at the airport. After completing one oval circuit, the plane then headed for the Salt Lake City airport without incident. Salt Lake City passengers reportedly remained on board for about 90 minutes until a replacement pilot could be found, and it had to do more than anything else with the weather in the area. Not that he was so much not qualified to land in Jackson itself, but the weather was what kept him from being able to land in that area. So, in other words, the story says it's entirely possible, according to most of the pilots commenting on the post, that the SkyWest dispatched a pilot who did not have enough time in the saddle, as they say, of the airplane to land at Jackson Hole Airport because of the unfavorable weather conditions. Somebody with more experience would have done just fine. So weather could have deteriorated, as you would have figured that it would in that area, because it's either really beautiful or because of the mountains in the area. on all sides. You can imagine what would happen. FlightAware radar shows storm fronts in the vicinity. Ultimately, the pilot made a decision, well, I am not qualified to do this. According to the rules, I have to have the following qualifications to land in this weather. Quote, perhaps not being qualified wasn't a formal statement as much as an expression that the captain didn't feel confident at the controls with that particular scenario. Either way, though, that's a smart decision. If he's not confident or not qualified, that's a good decision. The eventual landing in Jackson reportedly was very bumpy when they did get a qualified pilot, leading to speculation that the diversion was perhaps weather-related. Other comments said in communications with the passengers, things could have been better. They praised the pilot, the passengers did, for making a safe decision. Yes, it cost them 3 hours. But so Jim, who is a pilot, says, what qualification? He's ATP for blank sakes. If he can land, then he can land anywhere. Well, according to what I'm reading here, Jim, and I'm going by what I have here, and that's all I have, it sounds like the pilot arrived in the area and looked at the minimums because of weather in the area and went, no. And just didn't feel like he's a low-time pilot. As far as qualifications to be with the airline, he's low-time. So he just didn't feel comfortable doing it. So they went and got someone who was. And so, again, passengers on board going, well, I mean, it cost us 3 hours, but, I mean, if maybe that's a smart decision. So I just thought the story was really interesting. I'm hoping we get a little bit more than that out of it. But I look at that as just one of the more interesting airplane stories that we've had in Wyoming. And we've had a few, including a crash recently in northern Wyoming, but a few others that I've seen as well that made me kind of sit up and go, well, what happened? I would rather that if the pilot is approaching and looking at the situation and thinking, I'm not comfortable making this landing, but I know someone who is, then go get them. Jeff and Casper, I've heard that it can be dicey landing in Jackson. At times, yes. When you consider there's mountain ranges on every side, so you consider how the weather can change. I mean, it's either really, really nice. A few times I've been to Jackson, the weather was extraordinarily nice, but that can also change on a dime as well. So, yeah, I just, again, thought that was fascinating story, and I want to hear more. If anything is looked into and I get more, I'll let you know. 6:42, speaking of weather, let's Wake Up Wyoming.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS.
Go to Laramie, where David Settle is waiting by. Dave, I like sometimes just to start your day with a story that'll put you in a good mood. Wait a second. Try that again. There you are.
All right. Now can you got me?
Yeah, now I got you. The problem is I ended up sliding up the pot for when Frank is here, which is the one to the right, not when you're here, which is the one to the left.
There you go.
So anyway, here's the story that's going to put you in a good mood. I take you to Yellowstone National Park. Already you know that something's up if we're going to Yellowstone, right?
Hurons.
This does not involve trying to pet a fluffy cow or a big fluffy dog.
Okay.
Instead, here's a guy that was born in 1967, so he's a bit older, right? He's charged with theft of a tow truck.
What?
Drunk driving the tow truck. And property destruction with the tow truck as he tried to elude authorities, and a handful of other misdemeanors. Collectively, he could spend about 1.5 years in prison.
Okay.
Yeah. So he drove north from Old Faithful, turned around, drove the wrong way up a one-way.
Oh, boy.
While at the Faithful Lodge, and went off the pavement, then drove through a heavy fence. See, this just gets better.
Oh, wow.
Traveled 183 feet and stopped next to, the helipad there. And then fled on foot with park rangers in pursuit. Now, I would hope that they would chase him right into a bison field. But anyway, a tow truck driver, the guy who owned the tow truck, ran after him, but a ranger ordered him to stop. 2 rangers pursued. I would let the tow truck driver catch him. I mean, that would have been a lot of fun to watch. Taking my tow truck, driving drunk with it, are you? But no, I don't think the rangers wanted that confrontation. 2 rangers pursued the man through trees, both lines of traffic, across the Grand Loop Road, where 2 other rangers stopped him and held him at gunpoint, and then ordered him to the ground, handcuffed him, and so on.
How drunk do you have to be to steal a tow truck in Yellowstone?
And then, well, look, I look at it this way. Guy's just trying to enjoy his vacation.
I guess.
You go to Yellowstone, you get toasted, you steal a tow truck.
Now he's going to get a different type of vacation.
Yes, and possibly a boyfriend. But hey, spend about 1.5 years or so in jail. I mean, why not?
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Good morning, everybody. Well, the Cowboy football team is continuing fall camp practice here in Laramie as they build up to the 2024 season opener August 31st at Arizona State. And what, according to head coach Jay Savell, he said is they dodged a bullet. Wyoming senior running back Harrison Whaley went down early in last Saturday's scrimmage at War Memorial Stadium with what appeared to be a serious knee injury, but one feared to be far worse than the actual diagnosis. Savell said that Whaley will get his knee scoped Wednesday or today, adding that it's the opposite knee this time that will undergo the knife. Savell went on to say it's not going to be a season-long type thing, and he'll recover well and do that. It's just something that happens in the course of football. Savell said there wasn't any ligament damage, and Whaley is genetically wired differently and could make a speedy recovery. When he will be back in the lineup, that's the big question. Savell said, I think once the surgery gets done, we'll have a clearer idea on that. We're still 2+ weeks out from the first game, which obviously he said it's going to be early in the season when he would be able to return. So the Cowboys dodged a big bullet. Of course, Whaley had a big impact on the Cowboys last season, as in just 10 games, he ran for 947 yards on just 164 carries. He found the end zone 5 times while helping the Cowboys to a 9-win season. A couple other significant injuries. Defensive tackle Lucas Samsula suffered a season-ending Achilles injury in the scrimmage Saturday, and true freshman corner Tyrese Boss will have finger surgery and will likely miss up to 8 weeks, according to head coach Jay Savell. But he did say there were some positive things coming out of the scrimmage on Saturday.
Got a lot of good scenarios in. It was good because I thought the last 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, this week, we've improved a lot more as a football team, which I wanted to see because I thought this was one of the most critical weeks for us in order to get, a continuity and a rhythm. I think our receivers, these are the 2 best practices back-to-back that our receivers have had. I thought the scrimmage, they didn't play as well with as much tempo and urgency and all that. And I think that's been different the last 2 days. They've responded well to what we challenged them with.
Other Cowboy football news, the 40th annual Collegiate Butkus Award selection process to identify the top linebacker in the country began on Tuesday with the release of its preseason watch list. Wyoming linebacker Shea Suianoa named to the list as one of the 51 players. Also, high school golf gets underway today. 2 events, one in Douglas at their country club, as they've got the 3 Cheyenne schools, plus the host Douglas, Glen Rock, the 2 Casper schools, Kelly Walsh and Natrona, 3 other schools involved in that 10-team event. Powell hosts a 10-team event today and tomorrow as the high school golf season gets underway. And in Major League Baseball, the Rockies blew it again in Arizona, leading 3-0. They gave up 2 runs in the 3rd and then 2 in the bottom of the 9th, and the Diamondbacks win at 4-3. Rockies dropped to 44-77. Game 3, that series is at 1:40 Mountain Time this afternoon. That's your sports this hour.
The Butkus Award just doesn't sound like what you're trying to say. I mean,
named after the great Dick Butkus.
I don't know. What you're trying to say and what people are hearing out there, trust me, are 2 different things. All right. Thank you, Dave. Coming up on some local business and news time. Wake Up Wyoming. 7:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Wednesday, and over the hump we go.
Today's show is sponsored by Fish Lip Chapstick. Don't flounder when it comes to those lip scales.
And remember, ladies, if he's trying to put the moves on you, That'd probably be about the best thing to be wearing right about then. I'd go for it. I'm going to play something here that I played last hour just to amuse everybody, and I want to play it for the people this hour as well. So here's the deal. Trump, of course, was interviewed by Elon Musk, as you know. Elon Musk was actually in Wyoming when he did that interview, at a friend's house in Jackson when he did that interview. And Trump was in New York. So I didn't know Musk was in Wyoming when he was doing that. And this interview, which was basically, it's a podcast, but they're both just talking on their phones. So it's not like my radio studio here with all this equipment. They're just doing it over the phones. And wow, the number of people who listened, not just live, but caught it later. Any of the television former news networks, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, combined, they don't have ratings like that. It was just absolutely incredible, the numbers they pulled. And, of course, there were a lot of people who just didn't want that interview to be aired at all, especially in the European Union, where the person who's in charge, basically, of online and on-air censorship in the European Union was threatening Elon Musk. Don't you dare let any hate speech on that interview. I'll bring all of our power against you. He eventually had to back off because people complained they wanted to hear it. Just shut up and let them talk. Now, I said all of that because for those of you who joined in the second hour of the program, I wanted you to hear this lady. This is the UK Parliament, okay? Parliament in the UK. This woman has the most perfect old lady British accent. You're just going to love her voice. As she talks about freedom of speech, and you have no right to not be offended.
Nobody has the right.
Now, wait, hold on. Nobody has the right. I just love that.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. It is an occupational hazard of living in society. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
I just absolutely love her. If you want to live in a free society, people are going to have ideas that upset you. And you're just going to have to learn to deal. Okay? Be an adult about it. Be mature about it. Deal. Nobody has the right. I just love that woman. All right. So let's talk for just a minute. I've talked a lot about electric vehicles and wind and solar power, things like that over the years. Let's talk for just a minute about the cost of it with the Biden administration. Story I have in front of me says 2 months into his presidency, Joe Biden announced a $2 trillion infrastructure plan, money we don't have, by the way, that included $174 billion in grants, subsidies, and other payouts to encourage Americans to switch to all battery vehicles. Since that initial investment, billions and billions more beyond that $2 trillion, hundreds of billions, have been poured into what is increasingly a failed effort to convince buyers to switch. So in other words, and this is something I told you guys about earlier, those people who have purchased electric vehicles would have been interested in them anyway. Even without all of the subsidies and so on, they would have been interested in the vehicles. The people who are driving them were not talked into driving them by your government. They just had an interest in, it's an all-electric vehicle? That sounds interesting. I want to try that. So basically the market's already saturated with everybody who would have bought one anyway. So the story says the huge expenditures together with COVID and war monies have ballooned the national debt to the point that 76% of income taxes are needed just to pay the interest on the debt. 76% of income taxes are needed just to pay the interest on the debt. Many fears that spending like this on the nation's economy puts us on the verge of collapse, which I've talked about many times over. The story says the fault lies with the very concept that government knows best. Nothing is proving anything wrong on that. this kind of audio technology alternatives for electric vehicles, including a wide variety of hydrogen-powered engines and new self-rotating engines that are emerging on the scene. None of these have been blessed with the massive subsidies that we get for electric vehicles. Now, I'm just talking about here in the United States. You see what they're doing over in the European Union. Story says it may surprise some that even the New York Times back in 2021 questioned the wisdom of Biden's EV plunge. One of their commentators wrote that the $174 billion might not be enough to push most Americans toward EVs, and we've spent a lot more than $174 billion by then. He writes, it was doubtful that, the shift would be any part of the public, the consumers, finding a benefit in electric vehicles, which they haven't. His report made clear that the $15,000 EV battery and its constant need for recharging remain some of the biggest obstacles. I know new batteries are being worked on, but they're not there yet, so we still have a problem with that. Oh, also, there's a big problem I've talked to you before about getting rid of. If you have a used electric vehicle, good luck using that as a trade-in because auto dealers don't want them. If I drove in with my old car now, and I drive a vehicle until the wheels fall off, I get every bit of money out of it that I can. If I drove in right now to trade in my used vehicle, I'd get a pretty good price for it because I've kept it in good shape. You go driving in with an electric vehicle and the batteries have worn down some, that means in order to sell it, the dealership would have to put new batteries in, which makes it cost prohibitive to sell as a used vehicle at that point. So that has been working out. Story says, yet it's obvious today that multiple companies were already at work to develop alternatives to a vehicle that has been recharged, has to be recharged nearly every day. That may be convenient enough for wealthy whose garages and electrical systems can accommodate those kinds of charging systems. But what about the rest of us? A recent article noted that one company is investing about $6 billion to build a generation of motors capable of running on gasoline or ethanol or combined, and also plug-in hybrid technologies as well. And this is what the free market is doing. Despite that, the federal push for a one-size-fits-all solution is still on the table. Just this week, a new report touted the liquid hydrogen engine based on 1990s research at the University of Washington that even with a 100-gallon nitrogen tank, it's cheaper and lighter than just your basic electric vehicle, which the Biden administration is trying to push on you. The prototype liquid nitrogen engine is somewhere near highway ready, but like other alternative grid drain plug-ins, they ignore the potential solution in the federal budget. And like all other alternative engines, it does not rely on a lithium market controlled by China. So that might be a better solution. But you get basically the idea. Then the story gets into hydrogen fuel, stuff like that. But think about this as I go through the story. Let's go back to the beginning of this. So we started with the Biden administration taking $2 trillion. $174 billion of this was the beginning of trying to get you an electric vehicle. And since then, they've spent well over $1 trillion trying to get you into an electric vehicle. And they're not giving up on that, by God. They're going to get this done one way or another. 7:15, Wake Up Wyoming.
In Washington today, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a landmark decision. The court reaffirmed the legality of the death penalty on the grounds that it is, quote, totally badass.
Legal experts are already talking about how this clearly marks a trend towards the Roberts Court being less strictly constitutional and more strictly awesome.
The only show broadcasting from a bunker under Devil's Tower. Hey, it's cold down here. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, 6 a.m. weekdays on AM 1030 and FM 95.1.
Changes? It could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
7:21 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, Paul. Paul's up in Casper. Who is this British hero? Love to use her mug on a shirt along with her words. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. Some of you have already heard this a couple times this morning. I've got to play this one more time just because Paul said so. I don't know who she is. I could probably look her up, though. I just found this while I was just going through different social media, and it popped up in front of me, and I went, what? And I listened to it and went, oh, she's just wonderful. This is a woman in the UK Parliament, and she's talking about freedom of speech. Now, in the case of the UK, this is because people are being arrested for what they post on social media. Or one guy was arrested because he put a bumper sticker on his car, and he does not like illegal immigration. So it's an anti-illegal immigration bumper sticker. And because of that, he was pulled over by the police and arrested, and he might face jail time of over a year. So here's what this delightful woman had to say to the UK Parliament.
Nobody has the right to live their lives.
I just got to stop again. See, isn't it just nobody has the right? Oh, she's great.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. It is an occupational hazard of living in society. Yeah. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
There you go, yeah. And especially in a free country, which the UK is not anymore. If they continue to allow this to happen, they're just not a free country anymore. Okay, now, before I get on to the next story here, ladies and gentlemen, your favorite song.
Well, I like guns, I like the way they look. I like the shiny steel and the polished wood. I don't care if they're big or small. If they're for sale, hell, I want them all. I like guns, I like guns, I like guns.
Little disappointed by the turnout in this one. Guns in the Wyoming Capitol. Not a whole lot of participants. According to Wildfile, Governor Mark Gordon wanted feedback on a plan to allow guns at the Wyoming Capitol. So in other words, if you walk in, and by the way, I've had people, when I've been in Cheyenne, we're looking at the Capitol, and you want to go check it out? I've been in there many times. You want to go check it out? Can we? Well, you see, not only do they open it to tourists, but if you're a Wyoming resident, a citizen of Wyoming, that's your building, and you're allowed to go in there. So just go. That's why it's there. And you can just go ahead and walk around to your heart's delight. And when the House and Senate are in session, when they're in the hallways, switching offices and so on, because when they're actually, let's say the Senate is having a meeting in the well of the Senate, you can go up in the gallery and watch, but you can't interrupt. But you can stop your senator in the hallway and talk to him. And if they're having some kind of a meeting on anything, trying to pass a bill or whatever, you can just walk in and sit down and watch that meeting. It's your house. You own it. So with that in mind, Governor Mark Gordon wanted feedback on a plan to allow guns at the Wyoming Capitol because, well, we are a freedom Second Amendment state. If you're a law-abiding citizen, then go carry it wherever you want, however you want. It's if you've committed a crime, especially using a gun, that's a different story. But as long as you're a law-abiding citizen, you go do what you want. But when the time came Monday, the story said, to testify, only a few members of the public took him up on his offer. A dozen people spoke at the Wyoming Senate Building Commission meeting, half attended virtually. And 6 of them were state lawmakers. So, of the dozen that were there, 6 of them were state lawmakers already. The politicians all spoke in support of allowing those who work and visit the building to carry firearms. On the non-political front, those who spoke for opposed allowing civilians to carry firearms into the Capitol, while 2 felt that allowing concealed carry in the building didn't go far enough. As of Monday, 36 people provided opinions, comments via an online forum that's expected to remain open until October 2nd, so you still have time to throw in whatever you want to say on this. Comments were not read aloud during the meeting. Working Capitol law enforcement can already carry firearms in a building, but legislators, lobbyists, and visitors cannot. legislators passed a bill this last session that would have allowed concealed carry in most buildings overseen by the state, including the Capitol. But Gordon vetoed the measure, citing constitutional concerns, soon after the governor directed the building commission to reconsider rules for concealed carry permit holders at the Capitol and other appropriate facilities. And some of the representatives and senators, there's one, I forget his name, one senator in particular, remembered an incident where somebody got angry. The Senate is in session, they're down there having a debate, and somebody up in the gallery got upset and stood up and started screaming. And the senator said, boy, if that guy had started shooting, I'd like to be able to shoot back. Oh, Paul in Casper says, if that British woman won't allow her face, how about you? Oh, God. I'd like to meet that woman and sit down and buy her a cup of tea. Anyway, back to the story. Among those opposing concealed carry was Larry Wolf, a lawmaker and former senior assistant attorney general, who said he'd work around the Wyoming Capitol since 1980. He says, I've always felt safe in this building. I've never once thought that I should be fearful of my life or the life of anybody else in the public for one reason, because the building is protected. But he felt allowing concealed carry would make the building less safe. See, there's two schools of thought. Some people say allowing law-abiding citizens to carry makes it more safe. And then there's those saying, but if you let someone in, especially concealed carry. Now, to get a concealed carry permit, because they're talking not just concealed carry permit, as I believe what the law says, inside the Capitol, then you would have to go through a whole background check and more in order to get that. But all right, that's what they're debating right now. Turnout's been low so far. You can still make public comment on that. Coming up on some local news that we have to take care of, we're going to roll into weather forecast after that. Oh, at 7:45, day weather. Don's out of town. Don't worry, that doesn't mean bad weather's coming. But day weather talks about the next few days, which includes some shower activity, and then things warm up a little bit, but get nowhere near as hot as we were earlier this month, which is good news. I do have a couple of people running for political office in the state of Wyoming that are going to join me in the 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock hour. We will squeeze in much open phones. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
Watzel. This show contains sarcasm that some listeners may find disturbing. A sense of humor is advised. Chat with Glenn live on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
$7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, 888-97 was the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. There's a lot of things that happen in modern-day campaigning that are underhanded. Let's go back to the Obama era. There was a young lady on TikTok and Twitter and so on. She called herself Obama Girl. I remember she was on, was it TikTok even around then? I know she was on YouTube. I know she was on Twitter. But she called herself Obama Girl, and she was all excited for Obama. Very attractive young lady, put out all sorts of really good videos helping to promote Obama. All right. Turned out what had happened was she was already an online, what they call them, an influencer. And the Obama campaign paid her quite a bit of money to act like she was a huge Obama fan. Later on, afterwards, when she was asked about it, she said she didn't really care about politics. She didn't care if Obama got elected or not. They were just paying her a ton of money to do this. And so she acted like she was a huge fan. All right. Same thing is going on today. The Harris campaign, the Biden campaign before, now the Harris campaign, has been doing the same thing with a bunch of influencers. Act like you really are enthusiastic, and they pay that person a ton of money, right? Now they're also messing with headlines. The story says, throughout her time as Veep and during her presidential campaign, this author says, I will confess I never consider Kamala Harris to be the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree. But we have to give her credit where credit is due, and her campaign team, as they've come up with a scheme that no one else has ever thought of before. I will not give credit to her, but I will give credit to someone in her campaign team. Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign team has been silently editing news headlines in Google search results to make it seem like major news outlets are on her side. I'll read that again. They've been silently editing news headlines in Google search to make it seem like major news outlets are on Kamala's side. The altered headlines, all paired with "Paid for by Harris for President" banner, were changed without the news outlet's knowledge. Nearly a dozen publishers were swept up in the fake headline campaign, including major companies like The Guardian, Reuters, CBS News, the Associated Press, and PBS. So in other words, they put out a headline, and the Harris campaign will go ahead and grab that exact news story the way you see it, and everything will look the same. So you might mistaken it for, let's say, a CBS or an Associated Press or a Reuters headline, right? But then they change a few words to make it pro-Harris. Now, if you look underneath in very, very, very tiny, tiny print, "Paid for by the Kamala Harris campaign," et cetera, et cetera. But you have to look for it. If you put that side by side next to the headlines from those major news outlets, it looks exactly the same, except a word or two has changed. The story says, like every other political campaign team, Kamala takes out online advertising space on Google, but rather than just putting in their own campaign propaganda, they make it look like it's something that a major news outlet just put out. That's where the clever part comes in. Google allows its advertisers to go back and make edits to their ads, changes if desired, so Team Harris goes back and changes the headlines and the body of the text to look like an article is more a glowing review of Harris and her policy proposals, not that she's had any policy proposals. So you can see how they're doing this, making you think. Now, I think these news media outlets are already on her side anyway, but no, they're making it seem even more so. A spokesperson for The Guardian said they're reaching out to Google for more information about how the practice of editing advertisement, Google says, that is fake ads, don't violate their policies because the ads are clearly labeled sponsored content. But again, you got to see that because it's in such fine print. It doesn't make any less dishonest or disrespectful to the news outlets. Why not, to the Harris campaign, why not just put out ads for Harris? Why the deception of trying to make it look like an AP News article or a Guardian News article or a CBS News article or et cetera, et cetera? Why the deception? Just go ahead and put out an honest ad for Harris. But then again, maybe people might just scroll by that, especially if they're typing in looking for a particular headline or a particular story. These ads will pop up alongside the news story, and you might actually think it's a news story if you weren't paying close attention to the little disclaimer at the bottom that it's an ad paid for by the Harris campaign.
Aliens are going to be super confused when they show up threatening to overthrow our leaders, and we're all stoked and offer to help.
This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Wake Up Wyoming off. We go to talk to Don Watzel, who's from Day Weather, to tell us about this nice weather we're having out there this morning. Morning, Don.
Good morning, Glenn. Yeah, it's not too bad out there. We did get a little uptick in the winds along I-80 in southeastern areas this morning. A little trough passed through. Looks like those winds are starting to subside a little bit. But, yeah, temps are comfortable, 50s and 60s so far.
Now, a good part of the state, I'd say, about the eastern side right now, still looks really cloudy out there. Is that going to come with rain?
Eventually, yes. We have a lot of the same setup from yesterday and, in fact, on Monday as well. We still have monsoon moisture over mainly eastern and southeastern areas of Wyoming. That does extend westward towards the Continental Divide around Casper and areas westward. So another good chance for showers and thunderstorms over many areas. And there is a marginal risk we could see some gusty winds, heavier showers with those storms.
Okay. Now, I also noticed that comes with still, though, temperatures that are really nice for this time of year.
Yeah, hovering near seasonal, even a little cooler in some spots, talking 70s in the higher valleys, 80s elsewhere on the plains. That is going to change as we get towards the end of the week and this weekend. We do expect another surge, going to feel like August again by Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
See, now, why would you do that for the weekend? See, you can get that over with like today and tomorrow and then have us back in the low 80s by the weekend. If that's something that can be arranged, or do you already have that locked in?
Well, we've applied for grants.
Yes.
We've asked for funds,
okay.
but they just keep denying us.
Yes,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So now as we head into, I know this is a little stretching out here a little bit, but I know we go through a drier patch and a warmer patch over the weekend. But next week, it looks like we set up for a repeat of this week.
Somewhat, yes. The long-range guidance is suggesting that high pressure, as it expands through the Rocky Mountain West, will kind of set up shop right around the Central Plains. It could set up anywhere from around the Front Range of Colorado and Kansas, or could go a little more southwest. But regardless of where it ends up, it could set up several days where we get typical mid-August weather, warm temps during the day, spotty showers and thunderstorms mixed in with partly cloudy skies. So, next week looking pretty typical.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Don Watzel with day weather. So, yeah, you heard me there. I tried to jump in and get you guys a nicer weekend. See, it'll still be nice. It's just going to hit into the 90s again while we've been enjoying temperatures a whole lot less than that. But, yeah, probably get back into the 90s again, and less of a chance of rain during the course of the weekend, too. Okay, off we go. That was Cheyenne. We're going to head over to Laramie now to talk to David about, Dave, I'm just trying to give you the best possible stories today, right?
Okay, all right, let's go for it.
I think you'll like this one. Man is banned from Buc-ee's for life. After
what do you do at a truck stop like that to get banned for life?
See, and he's got to be pretty bad, because you figure, with all due respect to truckers out there, these truckers are being pretty outrageous, and they're not getting banned for life. So how bad do you have to be?
Right.
Okay. Brings in a service duck into the store, his emotional support service duck. Yeah. A man banned from Buc-ee's, the story says. This is in Tennessee. The man, Justin Wood, no relation, posted a video of the incident on his Twitter account and YouTube channel. And he dubbed it Duckies, as he chose to, he has 3 million followers on his YouTube channel. So I guess this looks like it was some kind of a stunt that he's pulling here. And he shows himself shopping in the video, stuff like that, with his emotional support duck. Now, of course, I have an emotional support rubber chicken, right?
Yes,
Carl.
Very famous.
Yes, yeah. And for those who don't know, what I did, I got really tired a while back, Dave, of people, how do I put this? People doing what he just did. I mean, going into, this is my emotional support duck, and it would get on an airplane. Or one guy brought a boa constrictor, and he gets on an airplane. It's my emotional support boa constrictor. I mean, come on. And so what I did was I took a rubber chicken, and I actually got it certified. I mean, this is legit, as my emotional support rubber chicken. And then I brought it on an airplane flight down to Florida, taking pictures of myself. Now, I don't know if what I did had any effect, but I went ahead and sent pictures of that to different members of Congress saying, look at what I'm doing here. Isn't this ridiculous? To have the law changed so you can't just take anything and make it your emotional support animal.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, they did pass a law based on that. I don't know if it was because of what I did, but I was trying to make a point. But regardless of the laws, to this day, my rubber chicken, Carl, is my emotional support chicken.
Nice.
Yeah, and now here I just want to set the record straight. People send me videos all the time. You know the chickens, the rubber chickens that squeak when you squeeze them?
Right.
Carl doesn't do that.
Oh, nice.
Carl, yeah, he's the traditional rubber chicken, the original style of rubber chicken.
Silent but effective.
Silent but effective. And now people have been donating more rubber chickens to me, so I think I have about 10 in the studio right now.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, thank you very much, Glenn. Well, let's talk a little high school sports. Golf season starts today with 2 tournaments going on. One's in Douglas with 10 teams involved, including the 2 Casper schools, Kelly Walsh and Natrona. You've got the 3 Cheyenne high schools, Central, East, and South, plus Douglas, Glen Rock, Rollins, Torrington, and Wheatland. Another 10-team event is in Powell today and tomorrow. Action continues on Thursday at those events. Glen Rock will host a JV invite just on Thursday. Green River's got a separate invite, which has 12 teams on Thursday and Friday. So high school sports for the 2024-25 school year are underway here in the Cowboy State. We've also got some changes for high school football in 2024, even though we're a couple weeks away. There are 4 teams that are in different classes now. Torrington is back in 3A. Worland, after being in 3A for a long, long time, has dropped down to 2A. And then you've got Moorcroft back in 2A, and Riverside has dropped down to Class 1A 6-man this year. And there are 13 new head coaches around the state, including Randy Roden, Kelly Walsh in Casper, and Jake Chick right here in Laramie. You can check out all the changes that impact just football only at wyopreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. Cowboys dodged a huge bullet. Harrison Whaley, star running back for Wyoming, injured early in the scrimmage last Saturday, but it's not serious. He'll undergo a scope today, and head coach Jay Savell says he should be back soon. How did that scrimmage go? Well, head coach Jay Savell said the last 2 days in practice, the team has responded very well.
Needed to be a big step. And I think, a scrimmage magnifies certain things that you do well or certain things that you don't do as well. I think that, you have, a little bit more inexperience at some of the receivers, than what you do with some of the defensive players. And I think just the urgency and the tempo of everything. Okay, it was live, and I think, one side kind of rose to that level a little bit, and the other side needed to bring it a little bit more. That was a challenge that we kind of gave them. And like I said, the last couple of days, I've been really pleased with the urgency of it, and that's a big piece.
And the Cowboys are actually off from practice today, and then they'll practice Thursday and Friday, have another scrimmage coming up on Saturday. And the Wyoming Cowgirls soccer team is getting ready for their 2024 season debut. They had a big upset win in an exhibition last Saturday at number 3 BYU. Their official season opener is coming up Thursday night as they go to Washington to take on the Huskies. And we'll see how the Cowgirls do under first-year coach Josh Purdom. In Major League Baseball, Rockies lost to the Diamondbacks 4-3. Game 3, that series is at 1:40 Mountain Time this afternoon down in Arizona. That's your sports this hour.
The Rockies lost? Gosh.
Shocking, I know.
Okay. How about just report when they win? That way we hardly ever have to hear from them.
Yeah, that's very true. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, we have. All right, thank you, Dave. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. And we're going to have a representative who's running for re-election in the Wyoming House of Representatives, along with some other politicians we'll have on during the course of the show. I will squeeze open phones in at some point. Promise you that. Wake up, Wyoming. The time, it's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Wednesday, so over the hump we go. And featuring all this week, we got a lot of you folks coming in. Politicians from all different sizes and flavors, wherever it might be around the state of Wyoming. In this case, it's going to be Casper, Wyoming, and it's Janet Ward, who is in District, which one?
57.
57. Okay, which means you've done a lot of walking up and down Oak Crest Avenue in the hills in that area.
Indeed.
Yeah, to campaign. Second time around.
That's correct.
That's what you're hoping for. Okay.
Running for re-election.
Was it anywhere like you thought it was going to be when you got to be in the House of Representatives for Wyoming the first time? Because it's the way you imagine it's going to be. But then when you get into the process, was it different than what you thought?
It was what I expected. I expected a battle, and it was a battle.
Okay. Now, you're with the, you work with certain organizations, so let's talk about who it is, because let's call it a caucus, or what's the official name?
Sure. I'm part of the Freedom Caucus, and they also endorsed me.
Okay. So the Freedom Caucus makes up what kind of a platform, for those who aren't familiar with it? What are you shooting for or trying to get done?
Well, it's the Freedom Caucus, so therefore freedom.
Yes.
And me personally, I'm pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-family.
Okay.
So,
and what kind of bills did you bring up last time?
well, like I mentioned, I'm pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family, so I fought for and defended House Bill 148, which would have prevented women from being butchered at Casper's judicial fiat-enabled abortuary. I was the prime sponsor of bills to stop the CDC and World Health Organization from making law in Wyoming. I was the prime sponsor of a bill to prevent the governor from unilaterally declaring a public health emergency again. I voted no on the biggest budget in Wyoming history because I think people should be able to keep money in their own pocket. I was a co-sponsor on the elimination of gun-free zones bill. Also, I was the prime sponsor on the What is a Woman Act because I don't think we should have men in women's bathrooms like is currently occurring in Wyoming high schools.
Let me pick on that one first, and we'll kind of work back through some of the others. So with the What is a Woman Act, that I don't think that was successful getting through, was it?
It was not. 19 Republicans voted against its introduction.
Okay, and what did they see as the problem with it from your point of view? What did they think was wrong with it?
Well, I think apparently they think it's okay for men to be in women's bathrooms.
Okay. And we're talking school
It's a simple little bill.
Yeah.
Defines women and men in statute, right?
Okay.
A woman is a person who's physiologically designed to produce ova and or who has XX chromosomes. A man is physiologically designed to fertilize ova and has at least one Y chromosome. Very simple.
Okay. But that's not what's happening in Wyoming schools right now, is what you're saying?
That's not what's happening in Wyoming schools. I have firsthand accounts from Laramie High School, for example. This poor girl has to go to other pods to use the bathroom. She got written up. And a pod is an area in the high school where you're supposed to be. She got written up for going to a different pod to avoid sharing the bathroom with a man.
Okay. So I guess you'll be reintroducing that bill. You get reelected, you'll be reintroducing that bill next time around. Is it going to be any different? Are you going to reword it any different, or are you going to try to face the opposition in a different way?
Because that was a budget session where I tried to introduce it, you need a 2/3 vote for its introduction. It should pass easily in general session.
Okay.
So yes, you bet, I will run it again.
Okay, as written as it was before.
As written.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the gun-free zone, this is in part with something I was talking about earlier this morning. It has to do with the Capitol building as well, with concealed carry. Now, does that have to be a permitted concealed carry at the Capitol, or just because as a citizen of Wyoming with a clean criminal record, I know I can carry whatever I want, however I want to carry it. But if I'm going to walk into the Capitol, would I have to have a permit for that?
So this is one of the things that shocked me when I was being trained when I was elected the first time, that you couldn't carry on the floor of the People's House in Wyoming. I was incredulous. I could not believe that. So whether it requires a permit or not, you shouldn't need a permit for exercising your Second Amendment rights.
Okay. So the governor vetoed that bill.
He did. Yeah. And I voted to reconvene a new session to override his veto. And obviously that was not successful. I couldn't believe the governor vetoed that bill.
Right. There's actually quite a few things that he vetoed, and I think the special session that was being called for wasn't over just one thing. It was over quite a few things.
That's correct, because he also vetoed House Bill 148, which, as I mentioned, would have prevented women from being butchered by that judicial fiat-enabled abortuary.
Right. Now, that's something that is still in the Wyoming court system, because I know that Wyoming had a law on the books that if the Supreme Court sent abortion back to the states, which is what it did, then abortion in most cases would just be illegal in the state of Wyoming. But it immediately got wrapped up in the court system. But I'm still waiting to hear where that is right now. I don't know how far we've gone in that.
Yeah, the tactic there is delay, 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 delay. Justice delayed is no justice at all. So, and also it was forum shopped.
Okay.
So how come we're trying it in Jackson, the most liberal part of the state? And that judge was appointed by the governor, who says he's pro-life.
Okay. Janet Ward is my guest. She's in District
District 57, like Heinz 57.
Like Heinz 57. So, okay, running the second time around, any different? I know you've been going door to door and talking to people. How's the reaction compared to the first time? Because now you're a little bit more well-known.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I've gotten lots of positive feedback at the doors. Most people are like, we know who you are. We voted for you last time. You did a good job, and we're voting for you again.
Okay. This time around, it's not going to be a budget session, but I want to focus on, because you just mentioned a moment ago that this was a big spending bill, which is interesting because on the one hand, cuts were made, but on the other hand, not. So why did this turn out to be such a big spending bill, do you think?
Well, it's because of who's in charge of the legislature and who has power. You know, we mentioned the Freedom Caucus earlier. About 26 people in the House vote with the Freedom Caucus, vote with the traditional Republican platform.
Right.
About 31 people who say they're Republicans vote with Democrats. 5 Democrats in the House. Boy, those are the most powerful 5 Democrats in the country.
Yeah.
Since 31 Republicans usually vote with them.
Right. Well, now, and there is something that's interesting how it's portrayed in news media. I mean, this is just me stepping back and watching what's going on without taking side. Freedom Caucus, on the one hand, wants to get a whole lot done that would be considered traditional conservative values. Yet at the same time, boy, there's some Republicans who do not like you guys.
That's true. So to those Republicans, I would ask why they don't seem to support the traditional Wyoming Republican platform, which is just like me, pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-family.
Okay. In some cases, I think it's a matter of, and I'm listening to what they're saying, it's a matter of tactics used and not platform. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think the other side likes to say it's about tactics, and I don't think it's about tactics. For me, it's always about principle.
Okay. What would you like to accomplish next time around if you get back in office?
Well, if the voters reelect me, I'll continue to be pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-family. I will rerun my bills to eliminate the CDC and WHO from making law. I will continue to co-sponsor bills that get rid of gun-free zones. I will rerun my What is a Woman Act, and this time it will pass. And also, we will pass those so-called controversial bills earlier in session, and we will override the governor's veto. And if folks want to learn more about me, they can go to jw4w.com. That's jwforw.com. Or follow me on social media at jw4w.
That's probably about the simplest website address I've heard from any candidate.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, pretty easy to do. Okay, let's talk energy for a bit, because I know a lot of Wyoming energy is being controlled by the feds. A lot of the property belongs to the feds anyway. But still, though, we seem to have a governor and some state legislators who are, I think, working with them. Carbon sequestration, things like this. Even providing subsidies to wind and solar power at the detriment of the other energy industries. Do you have any plans yourself or working with anyone on those issues?
I don't have specific bills I plan to run, but my philosophy is drill, baby, drill.
Okay.
That's what runs our state. That's what runs the world. Energy from oil and gas is the most reliable form of energy, and we ought to be sticking with that. You know, solar, wind, they cost more to maintain and build and repair and, yes, dispose of than the energy they produce. There's nothing that compares with oil, coal, and gas.
If you thought, I'm going to go back to spending for just a minute because I follow up on that. If you thought the last budget was big, what would you cut?
Well, I and the Freedom Caucus, several other conservatives, ran some 40 amendments to reduce spending, but most of them did not pass. I personally ran an amendment to defund the Wyoming Business Council entirely, because I don't think the government should be picking winners and losers. And I also ran an amendment to defund diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. But there were 40 amendments that we ran.
Right. Which, by the way, part of that partly did happen at the University of Wyoming, which personally I was happy to see. Although the university is trying to find different ways to keep some of that going. And I know that the governor was worried about if we get rid of all DEI at UW, we might lose some federal funding.
Yeah, well, I don't think that we should be relying on federal funding. And we could even say, take the money and then make them come after us. We shouldn't be beholden to federal funding. It reduces our freedom. It reduces our state sovereignty, and we need to take back Wyoming sovereignty from the federal government.
Okay. Sitting in the studio with me is Janet Ward, and that easy website address again is
jw4w.com with FOR.
Now, you're done walking around, because I'd asked you about that. You'd walk through all the neighborhoods. Is there any other event or something you're showing up to where people might get a chance to meet you and talk to you?
Well, first off, they can contact me via my website or my cell phone, which is 307-222-9747. I'm happy to meet with them. Sometimes I will have to schedule that for after the election. It's in 1 week, by the way.
Yeah.
And I will be with like-minded candidates on the election night. I believe we're at the Hilton. From 6 to 9 or so.
Okay. And just on a side note, for people who don't know you, when you're not working in the Wyoming House of Representatives, what do you do?
I work full-time remote from home. I've worked with this company my whole career since 1997. They're a chemical company. We're part of a big conglomerate, but my specific division makes UV curable coatings for fiber optics.
Oh, okay. What do you do for them? That's an interesting job. That's science.
It is science-y.
Yeah.
I started in 1997 as a chemist. I was in regulatory, then it was in sales and marketing and product management. Right now, I'm a project manager, which basically means herding cats and making sure the folks do all the things they're supposed to do.
Supposed to be doing. All right. Well, herding cats professionally, you got a couple of kids, that's herding cats. Then you go to the House of Representatives, more cats.
That's right.
Okay. Janet, thanks for coming in this morning.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Wake Up Wyoming.
Listen to Glenn Woods anywhere you roam with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:24 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Got one more political candidate next hour, but right now we're going to get into open phones. 888-97-WOODS is the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I said yesterday that I was going to vote yesterday, and I did. I went ahead and got a ballot. So suddenly the word slipped in my mind. A sample ballot. That's what I'm looking for. So I went and got a sample ballot, and I just took it home. I already knew what was going to be on it, but I just sat down and did a little bit of a refresher. So I knew when I got to the ballot box, I knew exactly what I was going to do and why. And I do get questions from people on occasion, well, where can I get information as to who's running where I am? Now, I know this radio show is heard on more than one radio station, and it covers a huge area. I like to tell people from the Montana border down past Denver and just as wide. If you're with me in Wyoming and you're listening, all you got to do is go to where's your local voting precinct. Usually it's in a city hall nearby or a county office. Just find out where that is. That's not hard to do. And you can just walk in to where you would register to vote. That place, wherever you are. And I say it that way because that's different for different people. So, for example, if you're in Wheatland, you go to City Hall. But if you're way out somewhere else, you might have to go to some county building. But you go wherever you register to vote, go there. Get a sample ballot. Spend a little bit of time with it. Find out who those people are. And if you can, get a chance to meet them. For example, Rose is on the phone with me about politics in the park, which is a great... I'm just glad you called now, because this is exactly what I'm talking about, Rose. All over Wyoming, there are places to meet your politicians. If you're in Casper, that's politics in the park.
Yes.
When's that going to be?
So, politics in the park's at Washington Park tonight. If you get down there around 4 o'clock, a lot of the candidates are there, because the event starts at 5:30. It usually runs till around 7. And, again, just to remind everybody that the primary election is a big deal this year since there's so many Republicans on the ballot. So vote next Tuesday or before.
Yeah. Go ahead and get to know everybody that you can. And if you're in, like where Rose is, if you're in the Casper area, just go to Washington Park tonight. Again, 4 o'clock is a good time to show up a little bit later because, as she said, starts at 5:30. But I know that no matter what town you're in, they're holding some kind of an event where you can meet the politicians. And that's one of the things, Rose, that I think is a big advantage for living in Wyoming. In most cases, you get to talk to these people in person so you can make up your mind.
Yeah. They had a commission meeting last night. There was, it was Parks and Recreation, but the commissioners handled it. And there was 3 people there, and one was a reporter, I believe. So,
yeah. All right.
You can always go to those meetings, and a lot of times that's where you can meet your candidates as well.
All right.
So, hey, Glenn, is it too late for me to get on there and have a little sit down with you?
Not at all. I tell you what, when I get done with you here, I'm going to let you go. Call Miss Mary and set it up.
Okay.
Because I know you're running for office too. All right, sure. See, Rhodes is also running for a local office. So, yeah, she can get on the air and have a conversation too. Lyman, Lusk, and Wheatland. Who are these 30 Republicans that keep voting with the 5 Democrats? I heard also at a candidate forum in Wheatland. Yeah, and pardon me, but I'm forgetting the name. There's a couple of websites out there. You can go ahead and look them up, and you'll find where to look for voting records, who voted for what. And you can just go ahead and scan on down and find out how different politicians are voting. But I would throw in just a little caveat with that. Sometimes when a politician votes against a bill, it might not be because they disagreed with the idea of the bill, but there might have been something in it that they disagreed with. You change this and I'll vote for it, So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person because they didn't vote for a bill. Sometimes it's the details that matter. But yeah, there are websites that you can go ahead and look up to see if any of those politicians were yours. But here's your opportunity, though, because it's about a week away for primary. And as you know, primary settles most of it in the state of Wyoming. And I'll talk about this in the next segment, but, the Democrats have not been really active this time around in Wyoming. And where are the Libertarians and where's the Constitution Party? I'll explain what I mean by that in the next segment, which is also open phone. So 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS, Wake Up Wyoming.
Watson. Want to talk to Glenn? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, open phone segment. I told you I'd get some in at some point. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Before I get into what I was going to talk about in this segment, I got to play this again. I probably will be playing this all the way through Friday. I might save it beyond that. As you know, in the UK, people have been arrested for what they posted on Facebook as an opinion. But also, there's one guy who was arrested because he was anti-illegal immigration. And he put a bumper sticker on his vehicle for that, and they arrested him. So it's totalitarianism now in the UK. Freedom of speech is going out the window. Not to say that they're still not debating it, though. Here is this delightful woman in front of Parliament. Now, I didn't get her name, but I got to get her name. She's an older woman with just the perfect old lady, refined British accent, and she argues for freedom of speech. I'm going to cut her off again. I know I am. Listen to this.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected.
Just love that. Nobody has the right to live their lives. Oh, my God, she's just incredible. Anyway, let's get back to this, because what she says is just amazing.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. It is an occupational hazard of living in society. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
There you go. God, I love that woman. Anyway, and she looks exactly, whatever you're picturing as the older woman in Parliament in the UK, what she would look like with that voice. Yeah, that's what she looks like. You nailed it. Just like every British comedy out there. Okay, so I was talking about, since I just had Wyoming State Representative Janet Ward in, and she's running for re-election, I was talking about me voting early for one thing, and I made sure to go out and get a sample ballot. Now, wherever you might live, where do you go to register to vote? Okay, go there. You can get a sample ballot online. Just type it in, sample ballot for your district. Or just go to where you register to vote and ask for a sample ballot, and they'll give you one for your precinct where you're supposed to be voting. Take it home, review it. The first thing that got me was there were some names on there I'd never heard of. And I went looking for their information, and they don't have any website. They don't have any social media. I haven't seen any yard signs. Where are they? They want to run, but they don't know how to run a campaign. And a little clue, it's too late now, but a little clue for all those people who might want to run for office. Internet, social media, and so on is not the wave of the future. It's now. It's how we do it now. So you need to be there. And if you can't figure out how to do it, then hire someone who can. Figure it out, because that's where people are. But still, though, you as a voter, go get that sample ballot and spend a little time finding information. You got a week before the primaries. And as you know, here in the state of Wyoming, most of the elections are settled because of the primaries. Now, that's always made Democrats really mad. That's why there's been so much Democrat crossover voting, which we're supposed to have. We'll see how it works. Legislation passed in the state of Wyoming to prevent crossover voting. In other words, you have to register to vote way in advance before you even know who's really running. And then you can't just switch back after you voted. Okay, there's a time limit on that. That's to help prevent crossover voting. And my argument on that has always been, if the Democrats failed to show up with any candidates for whatever office in your district, that's their fault. Okay, don't blame the Republicans for that. This is when each party selects candidates for the general election. And so if one party failed to show up, that's their fault. And speaking of that, it's not just that there's not a lot of Democrats out there running. I'm looking across Wyoming for all sorts of different seats. And for partisan elections, there's not a whole lot of Democrats running this time around, which kind of surprised me. And those that are running are not making a whole lot of noise. The Democrats in Wyoming are, for the most part, just not even on the playing field this time around. In past elections, especially presidential elections, they had some Democrats making a lot of noise. They didn't win, but they made a lot of noise. I don't see that this time. They're not. Even Democrats that would call, and they're welcome to do so, that were running for political office would call this program to get their interview. And I was always very fair with them, just like I was with the Republicans or any other party. And there's more than two parties in Wyoming. And I let them have their time on the air. Now, one has called. So I don't know why the Democrats are pretty much absent in Wyoming this time around. Speaking of that, there's not a whole lot of libertarians running out there. There is a Libertarian Party in the state of Wyoming, and they pretty much don't exist. They have just enough members to remain as a political party. They pretty much don't exist. Then there's the Constitution Party. And I've always thought, when I've gone and looked at the platform nationally for the Constitution Party, I thought, actually, for you traditional conservatives out there, you would really like the Constitution Party. The Republican Party has gotten away from you. The Republican Party is like the Democrat Party of the 1950s. And the Democrat Party has pretty much gone all socialist, communist. But the the Constitution Party is like a traditional Republican Party. And I think you would agree with a lot of what they have to say. But where are they? Not just nationally, but where are they in the state of Wyoming? They exist as a registered political party, but I've hardly heard anything from them. And I went around looking to see, are any constitutional or libertarian candidates out there running? Well, yeah, but you can count them on one hand, if even that. And then again, they're not making a whole lot of noise. So what you're left with is most of it's going to get decided in this primary election, which is about a week away. And then Wyoming decides the rest of it in the general election, which means it's a pretty boring election year, which disappoints me when you consider what I do for a living. I kind of like to see some good campaigns being run, especially every presidential election cycle. I like to see some really good candidates out there running, but just not this time around. It hasn't been that exciting. So here's what you do, if you would. Wherever you go to register to vote, if you would, you got until the 20th. Go there in person, or you can go online and look it up for your district, or go there in person and get a sample ballot and spend some time getting to know who's on the ballot. You should be able to look them up, and in many cases, you can go meet them. If they're not having an event, a lot of these people leave their phone numbers for local offices, not just the bigger ones. You can go ahead and talk to them. It's not that hard to do in the state of Wyoming. If you're not going to do that kind of work, then do us all a favor.
Darling, would you fetch me a beer out of the fridge?
So, I know everything about the Kardashians, Beyonce, and stuff like that. But I know nothing about who my governor is or whoever runs the state. So this year I'm doing my patriotic duty and stay out the vote.
Thank you, darling. I can give you every major stat for the Rockies for the last 15 years, but I can't tell you who the mayor of Denver is. That's the reason why this year I'm doing my patriotic duty and stay out the vote.
Too lazy to stay informed? Then stay home. Stay out the vote. Your country is counting on you.
Admit it, you were hoping somebody would say that. Wake up anywhere you do with the Wake Up Wyoming app. Free download for Apple and Android. This is K2 Radio.
8:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. We go down to Laramie again. David Settle is waiting by. Okay, David, it is time to rotate out the people that we're making memes of on social media right now.
I'm sorry, I missed that. You dropped out for a moment.
Okay, we have to rotate out the memes everybody's making on social media right now. I'm not going to get into why, if you don't know why she was popular, but I'm not going to do it on the air. But remember the Hawk girl?
Haktua, yeah.
Yeah, Haktua, yeah, okay. That was, okay. Well, apparently she's had her 15 minutes of fame. And by the way, she made a lot of money off of that.
I guess so.
She was smart enough to get an agent, and they sold all sorts of things, personal appearances, T-shirts, hats, et cetera, She made a ton of money off of that.
Right.
She said something that went viral on the internet, and she took full advantage of it. Now, the new meme, we have to say goodbye to that young lady, because the new one is that girl at the Olympics in the breakdancing thing.
Yeah.
The Australian.
Yeah. That's absolutely.
Yes. The latest one, well, yeah, she scored a 0. So the latest one, it's a scene from Jurassic Park where one of the kids is hiding in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when she first stepped out, you see her kind of doing what looked like a, I guess it's a T-Rex pose.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so.
with her hands. I don't know what that pose was supposed to be. That's one of many. I mean, she's being inserted into everything through Photoshop. I mean, everything. So that's who's going to be up on all of your social media, I would say, for the next month or so. And then something else will happen that will be totally ridiculous that you and I are going to be on the air talking about and making fun of.
Well, that's the way it goes.
Yes, and that becomes the next big meme for a while. The difference, though, is I have to admire the Haktua girl who did see this as a opportunity. I'm about to get my 15 minutes of fame, and I'm going to milk this for all I possibly can. And she did. And she not only made appearances on radio stations and television shows all over the country and social media stuff, she charged for it. I mean,
that's a good way to do it.
Yes, and then again,
into that.
T-shirts, hats, all sorts of other paraphernalia. And she has just made a ton of money. So if you do, I think this is the moral, Dave. if you do something stupid and end up going viral on the internet, take advantage of it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Let's talk a little bit of sports. Well, some big news out of the Wyoming football program on Tuesday. Harrison Whaley, the starting running back, suffered a knee injury in practice and will miss time. The good news is, sounds like the Cowboys dodged a major bullet. Head coach Jay Sawville, in talking with the media after practice on Tuesday, said the injury happened early in Saturday's scrimmage, kind of got mixed up in a pile. The good news is it's not as serious as the initial diagnosis. Whaley actually missed the Cowboys' first 2 games last year while recovering from off-season surgery on his right knee. He'll be in street clothes when the Cowboys begin this year, but it's the other knee. He'll have a scope today. It's not a season-long type thing, said Coach Jay Sawville. He'll recover well. It just is something that happens in the course of football. Sawville said there wasn't any ligament damage, and Whaley is, quote, genetically wired differently and could make a speedy recovery. When he'll be back in the lineup, they'll have to wait until that surgery is done today. Whaley ran for 947 yards and 5 touchdowns while helping the Cowboys to a 9-win season last year, which included a victory over Toledo in the Arizona Bowl. A couple other season-ending or one season-ending injury from Saturday's scrimmage. Defensive tackle Lucas Samsula suffered an Achilles injury, and then true freshman corner Tyrese Boss will undergo surgery for a finger ligament issue that he's having. He'll miss up to 8 weeks. As far as how the scrimmage went, head coach Jay Sawville, almost referred to Craig Bowl there, but head coach Jay Sawville said he thought things went pretty well.
Got a lot of good scenarios in. It was good because I thought the last 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, this week, we've improved a lot more as a football team, which I wanted to see because I thought this was one of the most critical weeks for us in order to get a continuity and a rhythm. I think our receivers, these are the 2 best practices back-to-back that our receivers have had. I thought the scrimmage, they didn't play as well with as much tempo and urgency and all that. And I think that that's been different the last 2 days. They've responded well to what we challenged them with.
Also from the Cowboy football team, linebacker Shea Suiano has been named to the Butkus Award watch list. The award goes to the most outstanding linebacker in college football. He's one of 51 players on that list this year. At the high school level, the high school golf season begins today. There are tournaments in Douglas and Powell. Both involve 10 schools. The one in Douglas includes the 3 schools in Cheyenne, plus the 2 in Casper, Douglas, Glenrock, Rollins, Torrington, and Wheatland. And then the Rockies, yes, they lost yesterday 4-3 in Arizona to the Diamondbacks. Game 3 of that series this afternoon at 1:40 Mountain Time. That is your sports this hour.
I would suggest that when Frank gets back, you go ahead and take about a week off because you're about to get busy after that.
Well, actually, I'm getting really busy. I go on my annual preseason football tour next week at different places in the state. So that'll keep me very busy.
Once you get locked into it, especially when the high school sports come around, there goes your life, Dave.
Yes.
All right. Let's wake up, Wyoming. 9:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Wednesday, so over the hump we go. And as we get close to primary election time, different candidates coming in to talk with me. So sitting in the studio with me is Rob Henry, who is a candidate for House District 30. Senate. I'm sorry. I said House. Senate District 30. And for those people who don't know where Senate District 30 is, where is that?
It's out in the western part of the county. The
county, right?
North and south. Goes from Alcova up through Paradise Valley, west of Paradise Valley, and clear on up past the airport. We've got North Casper also, bar none, and Edgerton and Midwest. So it's and then all the western part of the county where I live.
A huge area.
Not a
lot of people out there.
Well, during redistricting, it's got about as much as anybody else.
It does, yeah. Well, for those who haven't been, which also, by the way, beautiful country. I mean, just stunningly beautiful country, but also really big open country out there,
It
too.
is.
So for those, who don't know who you are, you've been in Wyoming how long?
All my life. I'm a third-generation rancher. and lived out there. I know the western end of Natrona County, the eastern end of Fremont County, and Washakie County. I mean, I've ridden over most of it horseback.
So you're a rancher then?
Yes.
The traditional kind, because you said horseback.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, what got you into politics, and when did you get into it?
Well, politics, I first started as a county commissioner in 2006 here in Natrona County. And so that was my first political deal. But I've been a president of Wyoming Stock Growers. I helped create the Natrona County Fire Protection District, County Commissioners Association, the Business Alliance, Wyoming Business Alliance. I was chairman of that last year. So I've been involved in Wyoming for a long, long time and involved in what's going on.
Okay. Now, as far as the political end of it, did you at some point just go for the Senate, or did you work your way up to it?
No, I'll tell you, I had some disagreement with the way redistricting went 3 years ago. Right. There was a push, and my opponent tried to push the whole western end of the county over into the Bighorn Basin and join with the Bighorn Basin. And I was a commissioner, and I called him up, and I said, you just can't do that. Yeah. The natural flow is everybody comes to Casper. That's where our flow is, and we can't split us up like that. And ultimately they didn't. But that's when I got to thinking about it. And then this last year, I was at the session all year long, and it was crazy.
Okay. Crazy how?
Well, I'll tell you, it was divisive, really divisive. And in the Senate, I tell people to watch the first 30 minutes of last session, the Senate, in the Senate chamber, and then go right to the conference committee on the budget, and you can kind of tell how it went. It was not good, and it was not good for the state. There was a lot of personal stuff going on in there, and that's not good for Wyoming, and it's not good for the state.
Okay. So then, if you get this gig and you step into the Senate, what do you hope to accomplish besides getting rid of all of the divisiveness, which right away, that's a whole fight unto itself.
Yes.
But what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I want to work on schools. I want to work on our core and legacy industries and make sure they can make a living, because that's what pays the bills in the state. We need to work on our wildlife, and we need to protect that wildlife, protect our legacy industries, ag, everything. That's what makes this state good and keeps it going.
How do you protect the legacy industries?
Well, by enhancing our ability to sell coal to not only the United States, but the rest of the world. And if we can get a friendly administration, maybe we can get it out to the rest of the world. Our natural gas, get that out to the rest of the world. Europe can use our natural gas. Put it on a ship and send it out there.
Okay. What about other industries that's moving into Wyoming, wind farms, solar panels?
That's one thing that we'll talk about in a while is the wind. I'm kind of all of the above energy. I mean, we've got nuclear coming too. And we've got a whole lot of uranium here. And as far as I would really like to see us enrich uranium in Wyoming, and then we make that value-added product and to feed the rest of the world. And that's how we make money in Wyoming.
Okay. So do you do that by fighting the federal government, or just making it easier to do business in Wyoming?
We're always fighting the federal government. I think there's 60-some lawsuits against the government right now that our state has, and the Governor Gordon, and we're trying to fight them all the time, and we're spending a lot of resources doing that. And if we can get a friendly administration, maybe we don't have to do that so much. That would be ideal.
What if you don't, though?
Well, if you don't, we'll have to continue to fight for Wyoming. And it'll be more lawsuits and against our own government. And it's really sad. But you take the RMP, they had the resource management plan down in Rock Springs. It wants to lock people out, not just ag, but oil and gas and minerals and even off-road vehicles out through there. You can't go to the desert and look around like you used to, and that's not good.
Okay. Well, now that brings up an interesting
point, since you live way out there. I mean, you are way out there.
I'm the farthest inhabitants away from Natrona, or away from Casper.
So, do you have federal land with you, along with the
Yes.
state land and your land as well?
Yeah, we run on federal, state, and deeded.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the corner crossing issue then, because there's people who want to get out there and access and enjoy the land, but even just crossing a corner somewhere seems to be causing trouble.
Well, there's lots of court actions against that. If you can hop across that corner, that's your right.
Okay.
But if you go out there to hunt, how are you going to get the game back?
Right.
You do need some permission out there, and so I think it's a matter of asking permission for some of those places. We've allowed hunting and stuff on our place forever, so just come and ask.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some of the other issues that have been, around the state of Wyoming right now. Second Amendment rights, of course, that even includes carrying inside the state capitol.
I believe in the Second Amendment and our right to pack guns, and I own lots of guns. But there are places that I don't think the guns are necessary, and maybe in the Capitol or in political meetings, something like that. I'm not for packing them anywhere and everywhere.
Okay. Property taxes is going to be a big issue. It was in the last legislative session and one before that. So in this next legislative session, it's going to be huge again.
Well, it will be, but I think it's important. There 4 bills were passed last year. One of them takes in effect this year. And I think we need to see how those worked and how those worked for people here in the state before we just pass lots of more laws. We maybe need to tweak those and make them so that people it isn't such a burden for the taxpayer.
Is there anything that you would plan to bring that you can already envision, bills that you would want to pass?
Well, one of them I've been thinking about, and I think they started to talk about that when they talked about the gravel pile on the gravel pit on the mountain. If there's a state section near a town or municipality in a county, then the county commissioners maybe, and it's just thinking about it, the county commissioners could petition the state and say, this one right next to our town or right next to Casper, that doesn't need to have industrial use on it. It's so close to town. And so there's something maybe we can do there to not have the kind of fray that we're going on right now. We have gravel pits on our place. And I don't mind gravel pits. We need them. Our highways need them. We got potholes everywhere, but there are places for them, and there's places that we don't need them.
Sounds to me like you're taking most of this, and I would expect this from a gentleman like you, to take most of this from a businessman point of view.
Well, I've been in business all my life, out there, and I started an oil field business, so I've really got 2 of them going. We do oil field work in 3 fields out west of Casper, in Waltman, in Highland, and in Lost Cabin. We reclaim locations and build locations.
Okay. Lost Cabin area, by the way, I did take a road trip a while ago. I went out 26, and then I started to follow Badwater Drive.
Right.
Through Lost Cabin, all the way over until eventually I wound up in 10th Street.
Sure. You went across most of our country.
Yeah.
And then when you went over into the Bighorn Basin, that was our land up there before you got into orchards.
How have you been campaigning out there? I would assume that you know most of your neighbors.
Well, yeah, I know most of the neighbors and I see them around, but the campaigning is here in town. In Paradise Valley, we've been going door to door, and bar none, I hit it last night. Go to all the parades and up in Midwest and Edgerton and talk to those guys. We had town hall meetings. We've got other House members running, and so we've had town hall meetings from Alcova to Edgerton. And, people aren't ready for this election, Glenn. They just are not excited about it.
It has actually, for every 4-year presidential election, I expected to see a whole lot more activity. I was talking about that earlier this morning.
Yeah.
Now, I bring that up because we are getting close here.
We're really a week away.
Yeah. So that means people would want to get a chance to meet with you and talk with you. When and how? Where are you going to be?
Politics in the Park is tonight. Yeah. And we have a debate for all of the Senate candidates that are up tonight. There'll be I think there's going to be 5 of us there. And so Politics in the Park tonight, we'll be having a debate up there and answer questions. And just like they have all along, this is the last Politics in the Park tonight.
Right.
So that's a good way. The other way is on my flyers and in my website is Hendry for Senate. And you can get on there, and my cell number's on there, my email's on there. You can get a hold of me, call me. So, yeah, you can get a hold of me.
Hendry for Senate with the number 4, henryforsenate.com. And like I said, he's got all his information right there. So if you want to go ahead and even just give him a call, because that's one thing I like about politics in Wyoming. You want to talk to the guy? Pick up the phone.
You bet.
You'll talk to him.
You bet. One thing that Glenn, the other day I know that you had a caller on, it was Judy, and she said that I had a personal interest in the wind towers north of town. And I absolutely do not have any interest in those. The county had some interest in it when I represented the county, but because the county will make some property tax on them. Right. But I do not have an interest in those wind towers, period.
Okay. And you do have here, and I'm glad to see stuff like this, married to Leslie and have 2 sons.
Yep.
You got to make sure to mention your wife in there.
Well, yeah, good for you. I'd be in trouble. Our son is pretty well running the ranch, and our other son is down in Colorado. He does a great job. He's really doing good. And so it gives me time. If I'm home too long, he says, "Don't you have a meeting to go to?"
That's right. Which you used to say to him when he was a kid.
I used to say to my dad, it's a family business. That's the way it is.
There you go. Okay, website address one more time?
Hendry for Senate.
All right. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Let's Wake Up Wyoming.
He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
9:24 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Guests gone. Open phones. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject. Fine by me. There's quite a few people who are talking to me about who to vote for and where to find information about it. Again, one of the ways to do it if you want to know who's running in your area, where do you register to vote? Go get a sample ballot. Information is available online. Well, go get a sample ballot, find out a little bit about them, and if you're looking for information and there's nothing about them on the internet anywhere, and they're probably not worth it anyway, because as I said to many of the candidates out there, you just got to realize where we are today, all of this social media and websites and so on people's phones. That is not the wave of the future. That is now. And if your candidate doesn't know, like the gentleman I just had in here, doesn't know a whole lot about internet and social media, but he was able to go get someone to help him with that. And so if you go to his website, it's filled with information about him. And you can go ahead and look that up and even call him if you want to get in touch with him and ask him a few more questions. And see, where was the one? Okay, Blue Eyes in Douglas, as usual, brings up a really good point. But before I get to what Blue Eyes has to say, back to the phones we go. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Hey, Jude.
Hey, good morning. First off, that was a load of dribble by Mr. Hendry. I never said anything about him in towers west of town. What I said is he brought in and he helped broker the deal for that solar farm that's going to be, or solar out in Barnett, okay, with all the problems that solar creates for health and people around it and water and all of that. That's what he was all bragging about. Secondly, remember when I was telling you that it cost me and Dana $250,000 to keep our grandfathering rights? Uh-huh. He was the lead snake on that. He didn't want to give us our grandfathering rights to our property, and we had to fight them to win it, okay? So the man is not for property rights, just his property rights. He keeps his gates locked. He's got people out there that run people off the land, off of BLM land, because I know 2 hunters that got run off. Secondly, he's not a fourth-generation rancher. He was adopted. He ain't nothing. And then here, when he was on the Board of County Commissioners, he personally had a contract with the county for gravel. Okay, he also got to haul it. The man made a lot of money off of it. And you know what? He's got a wind tower on his property, and he's making, probably about, I don't know, $80,000 a year off of that. The man sold out our coal and oil and gas and got into the solar. He's all of the above. You bet he is, because he's got his fingers in just about everything. So, to you, Rob Hendry, kiss my rear.
Okay, so for people who would like to talk to Rob in person, there's Politics in the Park for those people in the Casper area. That's Washington Park tonight. And I think, starts at 5:30? Is that right, Jude?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And also Rose is going to be there.
Yeah, I can't go. I'm getting dentist
Okay.
trips.
But then I know that Rose is going to be on the air with us on Monday because she's running for a local office too, so we'll see how well she does.
Good, good.
Yeah.
She can tell you about Rob too, but she stays pretty, even-keeled on that. But between him and Bertolio, those are the ones that sold the hospital. Those are the ones that turned around and changed the land use revision so that Coach Road would happen like it did. So, Rob doesn't need to move up in office. He needs to move the hell out.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. So if you'd like to find out for yourself, again, talk to these people in person. If you're in the Natrona County area, Washington Park and Casper, Rose called in and said, 5:30 is when they officially start the thing. You'll be able to talk to the gentleman yourself in person. All right, open phones. 888-97 was the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Blue Eyes in Douglas made a really good point about why we're not hearing much for Democrats in the state of Wyoming this year. And we'll talk about that after this.
Watzel. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Make your voice heard at 888-97-WOODS. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:36 the time. 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. So I said Blue Eyes in Douglas had a good point. I've been asking why. This is a presidential election cycle, and not just the Wyoming House and Senate with some important races there, but in the U.S. House and Senate, there's an opportunity for the Republicans to flip some seats and actually own the House and Senate. We'll see how it turns out. You don't know. Forget the polls. I don't care what the polls are saying about anybody. Polls are garbage. Forget the polls. But, this is an important election. So in the state of Wyoming anyway, where are the Democrats? There's some out there running, but not a lot. And they're really not trying to make any noise. In the past, Democrats running for the Senate or the U.S. House of Representatives for Wyoming have called this program. And that's fine. I'll be fair to them, and I always was. Nobody this time around. So Blue Eyes in Douglas says, I think we do not hear the Dems because we have so many rhinos on their side. They're not worrying so much. We need to get rid of those rhinos. Okay. So there's an interesting thought as far as in the state of Wyoming. With all of the Democrats who, and they exist. They do exist. There's people who are supposed to be Republicans, but they're not. And they're in the Wyoming House and Senate. And maybe that's just a better way of doing it. Rob Hendry wants to call and respond to Judy. Hello, Rob.
How are you?
Good, sir. What you got?
Well, I was gonna tell you that Judy got on after I was done, and what she said was absolutely false. I don't have a wind tower. Never had a wind tower.
Okay.
And she said I make $80,000 off of it.
Right.
And the gravel, I gave the gravel to the county to gravel. Yes, the road that I use, the county road. But all the hunters and everybody else use it, and I gave them that hillside. Didn't charge them a thing. And then she talked about the solar. Yeah, I passed the solar, and that was my job at the county, and I don't have a piece of that. So I don't have any financial deal with any of that stuff.
Okay.
And she just spouts these facts like she knows what she's talking about, and she does not.
So for those people who want to set the record straight and talk to you in person, let's remind everybody, Politics in the Park, Washington Park. What time are you going to be there?
I'll be there about 4:30.
Okay.
But we get on about 5:30, and it'll go until about 7 or a little after.
Okay. There's a chance for people to ask you in person.
All right. But
All right.
anyway, she just doesn't have her facts straight at all.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you calling back. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I let Rob back on because I think that's just fair as the two of those go back and forth. But here again, if you want to, and I keep mentioning politics in the park, that's for the people in Natrona County. Wherever you are, listening to me in Wyoming, there's usually something going on where you can meet your local politicians. I know up in Gillette they had the ice cream social. Cheyenne has things. Wheatland and Torrington and Thermopolis and places like that. I know they have their events. I'm not sure when they are. But also you can go ahead and, in many cases, especially if your politician has somewhere some kind of social media website, whatever their names are, you can go ahead and find their phone number on that. Just go ahead and find the phone number and give them a call, and then just ask those questions of them yourself. We're supposed to vote in the primary on the 20th, so you have from now until then to go ahead and do a little bit of homework. If you're not going to do your homework, then do us all a favor.
Do you pay much attention to politics? So what, do you get your news from Facebook, Twitter, maybe some late-night comedy show? Do you even have any idea who your senator is? Who's the vice president? So how do you decide who you're going to vote for? What, do you flip a coin? Every election season, there are get-out-the-vote campaigns, asking completely unqualified voters to show up at the polls at the last minute and flip a coin. If you spent the past 2 years completely uninformed and out of the loop, then do your country a favor. Don't show up at the polls. Don't vote. Take the day off. Go to the beach. Hang out at your local bar. Watch a ball game instead. Or check out some reality TV. Our nation's in sad shape because people like you have been voting. So this year, do your country a favor. Stay home. Stay out of the vote. America is depending on your apathy. Brought to you by the Campaign to Promote Uninformed Voter Apathy.
I also want you to be aware, and I think most of you are savvy enough to know this, but whether you're looking at television commercials or commercials on social media, internet, or whether you get a mailer, doesn't matter. There's a certain tactic that's always used by politicians as they go after each other.
This election, your choice couldn't be more important. Our candidate is in flattering lighting and full bright color. Their candidate is in grainy high contrast black and white, spotted through a telephoto lens from behind a bush, coming back from God only knows where. Our guy points at the horizon and holds a baby. Their guy doesn't have a baby. Their guy has a golf club. The voiceover for our guy is calm, measured, bright. Their guy gets the lower register, and sometimes we slow down. Our guy has clean headlines and the beautiful lens flare America needs. Here's a scary graph over a photo of their guy awkwardly laughing. Snap zoom. Do you want a snap zoom like that in office? Here's a photo of our guy saluting military veterans. Jump cuts, flashes, static, aggressive colors. You can't trust a guy with graphics like this. Our guy gets stock footage of sunrises and an American flag. Their guy's flag is upside down and on fire, intercut with overdue bills, war, and a crying baby. Our guy gets doctors and astronauts and stimulus checks. Flatline, an eagle, hurricane, the Statue of Liberty, crime scene tape, Ronald Reagan, a girl running in a wheat field to escape a dangerous sexual predator, welding, atomic bomb. This election, the choice is yours. Their guy or our guy. Inspiring slogan.
If I manage to make it through this week, I would like my jacket to be black leather and my helmet to sparkle. Thank you.
If it's happening in Wyoming, it's on Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods from K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
9:48 's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Down the Laramie we go again. Talk to David Settle. So, Dave, you ever find yourself going up and down the grocery store aisle and sometimes looking at the sign telling you what's down that aisle and going, okay, that's a strange combination?
Yes.
Okay. This is one, I think, probably the most American grocery store aisle there is. Okay. Aisle 11, beer, pizza, guns, Bibles, sweatpants.
Yeah, that pretty much checks the boxes.
Basically. America. I mean, right there. Just the American aisle. Okay. Here's one that I love. It's baby needs, the things you need for your baby.
Okay, yeah.
But also beers and wine. And so when you read it, it says baby needs beer and wine. Yeah, okay. Let me see. Soup, ramen, broth, cooking stock, oysters, saltine crackers, cookies, graham crackers, lost spouse, rice cakes. I don't know why.
Lost spouse.
Yeah. As I've told you before, I ran a rather large retail store in the mall.
Right.
And there was a section where we had a big screen television and some comfortable chairs. And we played sports on the television. So the guys can go over there and sit and watch while the women shopped.
Exactly. That's what we need.
See? Okay, let me see.
What we need.
Aisle 6. This is an actual grocery store aisle. Folks, I'm not making this up. Breakfast is what it says in big letters for aisle 6. Wine, beer, cheese. I don't know.
You can't have your cheese without your wine, I guess.
Okay. I'm really kind of worried when I'm in the grocery store and it says red flag savings. Or how about this? Not Pop-Tarts. I don't know who made this sign. Pop-Tards.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Somebody had to get creative with
But doesn't that make you kind of curious? I've had a Pop-Tart before. The hell's a Pop-Tard? I don't know. I'm willing to try.
All right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Let's talk a little bit of high school sports. Is high school football, high school golf, high school tennis practice all underway. Golf actually gets underway today around the state. There are 2 events, one in Douglas and one in Powell. Both are 10-team events that go today and tomorrow. Green River will have a 2-day event. That'll be on Thursday and Friday. Glen Rock hosts the JV Invite coming up on Thursday only. The high school football season still over 2 weeks away, but plenty of changes that we are highlighting, including 4 teams that are in different classes than they were last fall. Torrington has moved back to 3A. Worland down to 2A. It would be strange to kind of see them in 2A. Moorcroft is back in 2A, and then Riverside has dropped down to Class 1A 6-man. There are also 13 new head coaches around the state. That includes Randy Roden at Kelly Walsh and Casper, Jake Chick at Laramie. And you can see all the coaching changes when the high school football season starts, when the state championships are. Details inside the story at wildpreps.com and on the Wild Preps app. Big news out of Cowboy football fall camp. They're off today with practice, but starting running back Harrison Whaley suffered a knee injury early in the scrimmage last Saturday. Good news is they dodged a bullet. It was not significant. He will return. When that happens will be after he gets his knee scoped today. Cody Tucker's got the details at 7220sports.com and on the 7220sports.com app. But there were some positives out of the scrimmage, according to head coach Jay Savell.
Needed to be a big step. And I think, a scrimmage magnifies certain things that you do well or certain things that you don't do as well. I think that, you have, a little bit more inexperience at some of the receivers, than what you do with some of the defensive players. And I think just the urgency and the tempo of everything. Okay, it was live, and I think, one side kind of rose to that level a little bit, and the other side needed to bring it a little bit more. That was a challenge that we kind of gave them. And like I said, the last couple of days, I've been really pleased with the urgency of it, and that's a big piece.
Cowboys return to practice on Thursday and Friday. Then they'll have their second scrimmage, which, again, is closed to the public, coming up on Saturday during fall camp. And the Wyoming Cowgirl soccer team will open their season at Washington tomorrow against the Huskies, 8 p.m. start. Cowgirls just walked away with an exhibition victory against number 3 BYU in Provo last weekend, 1-0. So hoping that gives them a nice little boost coming into the 2024 season under new head coach Josh Purdom. Finally, in Major League Baseball, the Arizona Diamondbacks beat the Colorado Rockies 4-3 last night. Rockies dropped the 44-77. Game 3 of that series is this afternoon in Arizona. First pitch is scheduled for 1:40 Mountain Time. That is your sports today, Glenn.
I think if I go ahead and wager money on those rare occasions when the Rockies win, I can clean up because I'm the only one betting on that side.
Probably, actually, especially at this point in time.
Yeah. Everybody's voting. Obviously they're going to lose, and that's how, if they bet at all, because, who would wager for or against at this point?
There are plenty of people who love to wager on things.
Yeah, anything. All right. Thank you, Dave. We'll do it again tomorrow. It's Wake Up Wyoming.